Okay, guys, we're going to take a look here at example 5 and 6 on the applications note sheet. The example 5 here and 6 both talking about perimeter of a rectangle. So we have perimeter rectangle is 44 inches. The length of the rectangle is 4 more than the width. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So once again, we go back to defining variables here at the beginning. If we take a look at our question, it says we are going to find the dimensions of a rectangle. Well, what are the dimensions of a rectangle? When you talk about rectangle, you talk about its length and its width. So as I define the variables here, I'm going to call L my length, W my width. So the variables we're using are going to make sense, L and W. The first sentence, like we've talked about here in recent examples, says the perimeter of the rectangle is 44 inches. Sometimes in word problems, a sentence represents an equation. That is the case here one more time, where we have the sentence representing the equation. And the word is equals. So the equation here would be that the perimeter equals 44. Now the problem with that equation is it's not using the variables that I've set up here. So we've got to figure out a way to represent perimeter using L's and W's. Well, picture's worth 1,000 words. If I take this and go ahead and draw a rectangle, it might look something like this, labeling with my length and my width. And if I want to represent the perimeter, well, perimeter is adding all the sides together. So I take L plus the L down here is 2 L's. The W on this side plus the W there is 2W. So when I add the two lengths plus the two widths, that is going to represent my perimeter. So perimeter can be represented by 2L plus 2W. So instead of having P here, I'm going to put in 2L plus 2W equals 44. So first sentence, the equation I can use representing length and width, or with length and width in it, would be 2L plus 2W equals 44, or the perimeter equals 44. Second sentence, second equation, it says the length of the rectangle is 4 more than the width. So the length of the rectangle, well, what are we using for the length of the rectangle? We are using this variable L for length. So the length L is, well, is means equals. So the length of the rectangle L is equals 4 more. Well, that means I'm adding 4. 4 more than what? 4 more than the width. So that means I am adding 4 to the width. I've got this one in standard form. This one I have a variable by itself. We've talked about in the past that whenever you have a variable by itself, we're going to substitute. So where there is an L, I'm going to replace it with this W plus 4. So here we go, 2 times L, or 2 times W plus 4. Bring down my plus 2W and equals 44. To solve this, we're going to go ahead and distribute this 2 into each term. So I've got 2W plus 8 plus 2W comes down. That's equal to 44. Simplifying, I got to look and see, well, I've got 2W here, I've got 2W here. They're already on the same side of the equal sign, so we just combine those and we get 4W plus 8 comes down, and the equals 44 also comes down. To solve, we subtract 8, and we end up with 4W equaling 36. When we divide each side by 4 here, we're going to find W, and since I'm using W, this makes a lot of sense. W is my width, the variable, and 9 is the width of this rectangle. Well, to find the length, we need to take that value and plug it into one of the original equations. And since I'm finding L, this equation here is really convenient and easy to work with. L, the length, is equal to W, which we know is 9, plus 4. So we end up getting a length here of 13. So my final answer here for this one, the length is 13, the width is 9. You could add all the sides up and say, well, there's 2 lengths. Well, 13 plus 13 is 26. There's 2 widths, 9 plus 9 is 18. When you take the 26 plus the 18, those do add up to give you perimeter of 44. All right, taking a look at the next one. This is going to set up very much the same way. So to get started with, to save a little time here, we're going to define the variables the exact same way. We're going to have the exact same diagram here with the length and the width. So it says the perimeter of the rectangle is 50. So once again, we've got our first sentence going to represent our first equation. Then it says the length of the rectangle is 1 more than twice the width. So the length of the rectangle is 1 more than twice the width. So once again, another sentence, another equation. So let's take a look at our first sentence. The perimeter of the rectangle is 50, so equals 50. And the perimeter of the rectangle, remember we said we could use P, but if we're using L's and W's, we're going to use this formula here that we have, which is 2L plus 2W. So when it says the perimeter of the rectangle, you're going to just write 2L plus 2W, and then it equals 50. My second equation says the length of the rectangle is, well, my is my equal sign. The length of the rectangle, well, that's L. So the length of the rectangle is, or L equals, 1 more. That means I'm adding 1 more than what? 1 more than twice the width. So 1 more, I'm adding 1 to twice the width. So there's my 2 equations, much like the top problem there. I've got a variable by itself where there's an L. I'm going to substitute in this 2W plus 1. So here we go. 2 times L, or 2W plus 1. I bring down my plus 2W, and the equals 50. We distribute here. And as we distribute, I've got 4W plus 2. The plus 2W comes down, and that equals 50. I've got like terms here again. So I look at my 4W and my 2W. Since they're already on the same side of the equal sign, I just simply combine them together. The 2W plus the 4W is 6W. This plus 2 just comes down, and then the equals 50. Well, to solve this here, we're going to subtract 2, 6W equals 48. And when we divide each side here by 6, the width of my rectangle is going to equal 8. All right, so the width is 8. Take that value, plug it back into one of the original equations. Since you already have the variable L here by itself, that's going to make it easy to plug into this one. So L is equal to 2 times W, or 2 times this value of 8. So 2 times 8 plus 1. And I'm just going to go ahead and do all this at one step because we know we multiply first, order of operations. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 more is 17. So our final answer here for this one, you have a length of 17, you have a width of 8. You can check your answer quickly by adding 2 lengths plus 2 widths, and when you add 17 and 17, we get 34. 8 and 8 is 16. The 34 and the 16 would add up to give me this perimeter up here of 50.